All right, so tonight we're going to be doing some yin yoga. And for anybody who's watching the recording, whenever you're doing it, morning, noon, or night. And yin is a beautiful practice. Our standard asana practice has more yang energy, right? We're standing and we're working our muscles and, really strengthening the bones. So it's got a lot of vigor to it, especially if we're doing those sun salutes where we're building that more fiery energy. The yin to that yang, right, is a more reflective practice. So it's an opportunity to be calming the nervous system and very much decompressing both mentally and physically. It's a beautiful practice to stretch the fascia, the connective tissue, which then allows for release of the muscles and it helps the joints. So there's many wonderful benefits to this kind of practice. It's similar to restorative in that we'll be holding poses and be somewhat supported, and we'll hold them for a good few minutes. So remember, as with any class, that if you want to come out before I offer that cue, you're welcome to do that. If what I offer you doesn't work for your body, no, you can opt out, you can modify it, you can add a prop or subtract a prop. So really make this your own, but hopefully it'll be a really yummy hour together. So let's see, how shall we start? Why don't we come on down to our backs? And ideally you want to have a couple of blocks for tonight. If you don't have those, could be a couple of books, and it can also just, if not, it's not super critical, so don't make yourself crazy. But come down mindfully. You might want to have your feet on the mat, your knees bent, and have the hands on the back of your thighs, and roll yourself down. You can walk the feet in towards your body. Let the feet go wide and let the knees drop in. Feel free to lift and lengthen your head and let it come down. Find a place to rest your hands, whether it's on the belly, down by your side, out in T or up in a V, if you want a little more opening of your chest or a little release in the shoulders. If you're more comfortable extending your legs, you're welcome to straighten the knees and lie with the legs straight out in front of you. And when you find the place you want to place your limbs and the body feels good, take just a couple moments to rest and breathe. So feel that cool air coming in through the nose. Feel the warm air coming out. Bring yourself to present moment with your senses, noticing the weight of your body against the floor and any textures that are touching your skin. Notice the sounds that are around you. Scan the body and just take note of what is so. Where is there easefulness? Is there any place where there's tension or tightness? Is there any place that's in pain? And can you have a sense of compassion for whatever's here? Maybe send some breath if there's somewhere that is drawing your attention in a less than positive way. And check in with your mind. Notice the speed, quantity, the quality of your thoughts. Right? Is the mind the still lake tonight, or the caged monkey, or something in between? And check in with the heart. And from this place of stillness and awareness, maybe call in an intention or two of what you might like from tonight. And you can bring your hands either stacked on the heart center or in prayer pose. And let's seal these intentions and join our energies together with that sound of Om. Om. And let the eyes flutter open. You can let the hands come down to your sides, and if the knees are resting against each other, separate them. If the legs are straight, might want to bend the knees and put the feet on the floor once again. So we'll start tonight with just a little half happy baby to start to open up the hips. So keeping your right foot on the floor and your right knee bent, we'll keep the left knee bent as well, and then lift that left foot off the ground. Draw your knee towards your underarm, and then start to bring the sole of your foot up so that it faces the ceiling, but still keep the knee bent. And then use that left hand to draw this leg down towards the ground. So you might hook your forearm behind the knee crease and just draw down on the thigh. You might hold on to your ankle or your shin. If you're able to hold on to your foot, you could do that. Some people like to wrap the first two fingers around the big toe. That's another option. So keeping the right knee bent will keep the lower back hopefully in some ease. If you would like a deeper stretch and it doesn't bother your back, you can straighten the right leg. But if that feels like it's too much when you try it, no, you can always come back and keep that right knee bent and the foot on the floor. And start to notice what's here in this area that we're starting to open up. The hip, the groin, even a little bit of the inner thigh stretch. Might want to do a gentle rock of the hips side to side. If it feels good, you could float the right arm up and behind you, resting the back of your hand beyond the crown of your head, and just starting to open up that shoulder joint as well. See if you can let the face be relaxed. Stay with your breath, let it flow with a full inhale and a nice full exhale. Right? And if it starts to feel like it's too intense, you can always do less of a pull with that left hand. You could come out of the pose and then come back in. Could come out and just rest as we did for centering. But we give this body a nice bit of time to really start to undo. And then let that hand release away from your left leg. Bring the left foot down onto the mat. And now you can extend the right leg, flex the foot, let your left knee drop out to the side and the sole of your left foot rest against the inside of your right leg. Could be against the knee, the thigh, or the shin, coming into a reclining tree pose. If it's comfortable and your knees touching the ground, then let that bent knee rest there. If you need a little support under the knee, if there's any kind of strain or it doesn't come down, maybe add a prop, a block under there, a blanket or a pillow. Again, you can choose where you might want your arms. So when we do this pose standing, we're often growing our branches, so your arms can be reaching up and out in a V, with the back of the hands resting on the ground. If you enjoy steeple pose and want to, again, a little more scrunching of the shoulders, you could bring your hands beyond the crown of your head, interlace all but the index fingers, and then send your arms long behind you, letting the thumbs cross and rest on the ground beyond the head. You might choose to slacken that right foot. Again, flexing is a pretty active move, so when we let the foot go, we might feel a little release. Can lengthen through the low back. Could take a gentle rock of your head side to side. And send that breath through the body, filling up as you breathe in, letting go as you breathe out. When you're ready, can slowly start to release the fingers if they're interlaced, or if the arms are out in V. We're going to start to float the arms out and down, sliding them along the floor till they come down to your side. Might use that left hand to help the left knee come back up, and the left foot can come to the mat. And then extend that left leg out. Just notice the difference between your left side and your right side. And you can bend both knees, feet to the mat. Lift the right foot up, take that knee out slightly to the side and start to bring it toward your underarm. Lift the sole of your foot to face the ceiling, and then find a way to bring a little anchoring of weight to draw this right leg down towards the ground. So it could be hooking the forearm into that knee crease or resting your hand on the back of your right thigh. But it could also be holding on to the shin, the ankle, the foot, or the big toe. You can keep this left knee bent, maybe drop it out to the side a little bit, if that feels good, or you can extend that left leg long. For some of us, it'll be a nice juicy stretch. For some of us, might kind of start to hurt the back. So if there's any tension or it's not as comfortable, feel free to bend that left knee and keep the left foot flat on the floor. Notice the sensation, maybe a little rocking or a slightly deeper breath will help to ease what might be tight or tense here. See if you can soften and relax your face. When we relax the jaw, could scissor it side to side or take it in a circle. We often help to release the hips as well. You can play with how much your right knee is bent. Maybe start to straighten it just a little bit and then bend it back in. Or maybe bend it more deeply, bringing your heel towards the back of your thigh. And then bring the sole of the foot back up towards the ceiling. One or two more breaths. And then you can release the grasp of your foot. Bring the right foot down to the floor. If the left knee is bent, straighten that leg. And then let the right knee drop out to the side and bring the sole of your right foot against your left leg, coming into that tree pose on the second side. So if the knee easily drops down to the floor, then you're fine. If it doesn't quite make it and you want to put a little something under there, a block, a blanket, a pillow to give it some support, feel free to do that. And then once again, pick some version of the arms that you want to do. It could be prayer hands at your heart center. It can be making that big V, or it could be steeple pose, interlacing your fingers, except for the index finger, and reaching them up, those hands up beyond your head, thumbs crossed and resting on the floor or on a prop if it's hard to get the thumbs all the way down to the ground. So if you feel a yawn coming on, let it happen. If you can invite a smile to come through, notice how that might change things. Notice not only the effect of pausing here in this pose with the physical body, but how does the mind and the heart react, right? If we've been busy all day, this can be such a respite to stop. It can also be a challenge. If we're in doing mode, to stop and release can be uncomfortable or unfamiliar. One or two more breaths. And then let the hands separate if you're in steeple pose. If the arms are up and out, float them out and down to your sides, almost like a sun breath would be. Let that right knee come up to face the ceiling or the sky. Feel your right foot connect to the floor, and then slide both legs out. Notice how those hips feel. Maybe give a little wiggle or a rock there. And then we'll take what's often affectionately called banana pose. So you can walk your feet over, one heel and then the other to the left. And then stretch long, lengthen your tailbone, and start to walk the backs of your hands over to the left so that we're making a curve through the left side of the body and we're stretching the right side body, and someone looking down upon us would see that we're shaped like a banana. If you want to turn your head to one side or the other, feel free to do that as a little stretch to the neck. And once you get yourself set here, see where you can relax. So in yin yoga, the muscles are really passive. And that allows us to use gravity and these stretches to start to lengthen and nourish this connective tissue. So let yourself be as soft and grounded as possible. Feel what's happening through that right shoulder, the right side ribs, through the right hip. If it's comfortable, you could cross your right ankle over your left and see if that offers even more stretch to your right hip. If it's not comfortable, you don't have to stay crossed. You can keep the legs and the ankles and the feet side by side. Where are you holding on and where can you let go? And then you can uncross that top foot. Walk your legs back to center and your arms back to center. You can bend the knees, bring the feet to the mat. Maybe take just a little cat and cow here. It's a big stretch through the side body. You might have tugged on the back as well. Lift the feet and hug your knees into your chest. Take a little rock before we do the other side. And then come to stillness. Bring the feet to the mat. Extend the legs out long. And this time we're going to walk heel by heel, the legs to the right. Let your arms float up above your head. Back of the hands can rest on the ground, or you might interlace the fingers. But we'll take the arms over to the right as well. So we're making that little curve, C curve into the right side and creating this big convex curve on the left side. You can keep your head looking up towards the ceiling or turn your head in either direction, wherever it might feel comfortable. You can find a drishti, a little gentle point of focus up on the ceiling, or if you're practicing outside in the sky, or you might choose to close the eyes. Know that if you want to cross that left ankle over the right, you can do that for a little extra hip stretch. If it's too much or it doesn't feel comfortable, then feel free to uncross and opt out of that extra little maneuver. Keep your low back long, slightly tucking the pelvis, just so there's no compression. The idea of yin yoga is to decompress. So we don't want anything that's gripping or catching in that low back. And then when you're ready, you can uncross the ankles and come back to center. Float the arms out and down. If it feels good to bend the knees, feel free to do that and separate them as wide as your mat. Maybe take those little windshield wipers side to side. And then let the knees drop to the left. You can bring your arms out in T and turn your head to the right. If your right knee doesn't quite make it to the floor, you can place your left foot under the inside of your knee and let the right knee rest on the inside of your left foot. Or you could put a block or a blanket in there so that the leg has something to rest to. And then maybe turn your head in the opposite direction. Right, we've done this stretch together many times. It's a great one to start to open up the hip flexors and the chest. Feel that sense of gravity drawing you down. Maybe let the head rock just a little more to the side. Drop your jaw. And then float your gaze upward towards the ceiling. Float your knees up towards the ceiling. Feet coming to rest on the mat. Do that little windshield wiper a few times and then take the knees to the right. This time you can rest the left knee on the inside of the right foot or add that pillow, block, or blanket. Lengthen the tailbone, press that right front hip bone up and at a diagonal, and then maybe turn the head to the left. Ah. All right, like a oozing lava on the ground. Where can you find room to soften and expand and stretch? One more breath. Slow, full inhale, slow, full exhale. And then turn the gaze up to the ceiling. Bring the feet back onto the mat and the knees up towards the ceiling. And we'll do one last pose here on our backs before we roll over. So keeping your knees bent, cross one ankle in front of the other, and then let the knees drop down. Bend your elbows and cross one wrist over the other, and maybe hold onto your elbows. Might feel an arch in the back. So lengthen the tailbone just a little bit, and then hold here. Could lift your chin just slightly up away from your chest. Maybe drop the jaw so the bottom teeth and the top teeth part. Notice the sensations. Where do you feel the stretch? Might notice it in the front of the thighs. Might feel that arching in the mid or upper back. And stretch across the chest. Right, we want to give the body enough time in these poses that they can soften. And again, that connective tissue will begin to stretch. It's this beautiful spider web-like material that is very moist. But with stress and age and gravity, it can start to shrink and get dehydrated. So we want to make sure we have lots of water every day, but also stretching it out like this will also help to rehydrate it. So notice which foot is in front or which ankle is on top, and the same thing, which arm is on top and which arm is on bottom, and see if you can switch them. Right, so we're changing up the position of the legs, we're changing up the position of the arms. If it's hard for you to keep the legs crossed, sometimes, again, a prop under the knees, a block under each knee, or a blanket can feel good. So take a few breaths into this second side. Notice what's changed. Does one side or one part feel the effects of this pose more than others? And see if you can hold your focus on a slow, steady breath. As always, if you catch the mind wandering, that's the perfect moment to just breathe and draw your attention back to the breath, which anchors us in present time. Now you can uncross those limbs, uncross the legs, uncross the arms. Find a way to release. It might be going back to those windshield wipers, might be taking the arms and legs up and shaking them a little bit, or hugging in like we did earlier. Right. And when you're ready, if the knees aren't already bent, bend them, hug in, and use that rock to roll you over to your side in fetal pose. And have your lower arm right out in front of you at shoulder height. The knees can be stacked, and see if you can let your head rest down on the floor. I often suggest that you use the lower arm as a pillow, but we're going to just take a few breaths here to do this wonderful little neck stretch. So as your head drops to the floor, you might feel a little stretch on the top side of the neck. You can let that top arm rest down at your side. And then when you're ready, roll over and do the same thing on the other side. So we'll come onto our backs maybe, and then roll and bring the knees to stack. The lower arm can come straight out in front of you. And we'll let the head rest down on the floor. Top arm can rest down at your side. And feel the stretch through the top side of the neck so that we get both sides tonight. Take one more breath here. Maybe add a smile. And then use that top hand to come down onto the floor and start to press up with that hand and the other limbs, legs, and arms helping you up. And we'll come onto hands and knees. All right. So this is where you might want to have your blocks. And we're going to bring the blocks down so that they're lengthwise on the mat and about shoulder width apart. If you can put your hands down on them, that's probably a good width. And then we're going to have our sitting bones staying lifted nice and high. So if you need to pad the knees, feel free to bring a blanket underneath the knees. And then we'll come down, bring your elbows down onto your blocks. And if you don't have the blocks, you can bring the elbows onto the floor. Bring your hands together in prayer pose. And then start to walk your elbows forward. Let your head hover between the blocks. And let your hands come towards your neck. So the thumbs might gently touch the back of your neck. So we're in sort of a more passive form of puppy or an elevated child's pose, where your elbows and maybe some of your upper arm are resting on the blocks. And we're feeling this lift and this opening through the underarm and through the neck, the upper back, the shoulders. You can rest your forehead on the floor if that is comfortable. If that's too far, then just let the head hover. And send some deep breaths into your upper back. You can rock the head side to side, whether it's in the air or on the mat. If it feels good, you might tuck the toes under to get some stretch through the toes and the feet. But if it feels better to keep the tops of the feet down, that's fine. Find that connection to your breath and feel that steady flow of expansion and release. Feel the lift and spread of the sitting bones. Feel the weight and the length of your head and neck. Very slowly start to lift your head if it's down on the ground. Let your hands in prayer come forward. Might bring the hands or the fingertips down onto the mat and then lift up, coming off your elbows and releasing those shoulders. Take that moment to find any kind of release that feels good, a wiggle waggle of the hips or rocking one shoulder forward and then the other. Or maybe a little cat and cow here. Good. And then we'll come back and we'll come into a little more challenging. We're going to come into dragon pose. So you can bring your blocks up towards the front of your mat, have your hands on top. And this can be at any height, lowest, middle, or highest height. And we're going to bring one foot forward. So let's start with the right foot forward. And we're going to hold this lunge that we often do. And you can start to play with it a little bit in terms of how you might want to do it. So you can have your hands one on either side of your foot, or you could move both hands to the inside of your foot. If you want to take that both hands inside, then you might drop that knee out. Or take a little wiggle in the hips here. You could bend your elbows and bring your forearms down onto your blocks. Again, that could be at any height, but that's not required. If you prefer to keep your hands pressing down, that's fine. If it feels juicy, you could bend the back knee, right? And point those left toes and get a big stretch through your quads. It's a little more active, a little more intense. You can also take one hand back and hold that foot, but that's a more advanced version. So if your quadriceps are tight, or you haven't done practice in a while, or you've had a busy day, maybe leaving that back foot down is just fine. Right? You can always change up. You can go deeper. You can back off and come to where you started. Again, you can rest in stillness, or you can take the wiggle. So just take one or two more breaths here. Probably up to 3 or 4, I lied. And then bring that, if both hands are inside, bring the right hand to the outside of the right foot. And now shift your hips back so that you straighten the front knee and lift the back toes. You can walk your blocks and your hands back to be outside the shin or the knee, just to take a little counter stretch. And then bend the right knee and come back to be on both knees. And we'll step the left foot forward and do this same pose here. So the left foot comes forward. Your hands can walk forward with the blocks and have one hand out on the outside of the foot, one hand on the inside of the foot, and just press the hips forward. So you can hold like this through this whole time. right? If you want to change it up or do it the way we did, or one suggestion from the first side, you can bring both hands to the inside, to the arch side of your foot, and then maybe let that left knee drop out a little bit. Could take a little wiggle in the hips. Keep pressing the hips forward. If you liked that back knee bent, you could do it again. Remember, it's not required. So keeping that back shin down and just pressing into the shin and the foot is totally fine. Right, so we stay here and we breathe and we give space. Could walk that right hand out to the side a little bit and maybe find a little wiggle through these hips. All right, if you need to back off or you need to come out, feel free to do so. If you can hang on for just a few more breaths, right, use the breath to soothe the body. Take those micro movements if you need to back off just a little or add that wiggle. Or come off the hands and give the wrists a break by resting the forearms on your blocks. And then when you're ready, you can very slowly start to come out of this. So if the forearms are down, come back to the hands on the floor or the blocks. If the hands are on the inside of that foot, bring the left hand outside, shift your hips back, lift your toes, straighten that front leg. Maybe bow down and just take a counter stretch here. And then bend that left knee. Bring both knees in and pull back to child's pose. Maybe bringing a block underneath the forehead and letting your hands come down right outside the feet. And if you want to rock your head from side to side, feel free. Follow the breath. And then you can decide if you want to stay in this pose and make this your Shavasana, or if you want to lift your head and just slide forward and rest belly down for the final few moments of class, or if you want to roll over and come into traditional Shavasana, resting on your back and separating the legs and letting the arms come out away from the body. Remember, you can keep the knees bent if that's more comfortable. You can put blocks under your shins or your lower thighs or a bolster there. If it's cool, you might want a blanket over you. You might want a little something under your head, a pillow or a rolled blanket under your neck for some softness. You can take your glasses off if you're wearing them. And one more time, follow your breath. Feel gravity pressing down on you. And let any tension just drip away. Sliding off the body, absorbed by Mother Earth. Soften every part of you. From the toes to the crown. And let each breath bathe you in prana, that life force energy, drawing upward on the inhale, flowing down, bathing this body on the exhale. So checking in and seeing where you are. Know that you can stay in rest pose, whatever you've chosen, for as long as it feels right to you. If you're ready to complete your practice, start to find those simple movements, maybe just rocking the head, taking a yawn, a little wiggle of shoulders or hips, fingers or toes. You can start to stretch the arms and the legs up or out, as if waking up from a lovely nap. If you're lying on your back, especially, you can draw those knees in and hug them to your chest, rock side to side. Or if it feels easier, keep the feet on the mat and just rock the knees side to side, those windshield wipers. Roll onto your side, and this time you can use that lower arm as a pillow, or maybe another prop nearby. Remember your intentions and see what's here. How have they taken root or manifested in some way? And then press yourself up to sitting, being mindful of how you come up. Find your seat. As you find your seat, invite the spine to lengthen. Hopefully it feels spacious, and invite the hands to prayer at the heart. Feel this divine feminine energy. Easefulness, the cooling, the energy of the moon rather than the sun. Feel this union of body, mind, and heart, and let's seal our practice with the sound that embodies that, the sound of Om. Aum. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Bow to the peace in your heart. Know it exists in every one of us, so lift your gaze and bow to each other. Thank you all.